Congressional aides say Tuesday's Capitol assault hearing will dive into how former President Trump and his allies tried to pressure state officials into overturning the 2020 election results. Meantime, the committee is weighing issuing a subpoena to former Vice President Mike Pence. Pence was the focus of one of last week's hearings. He was in Chicago Monday, where he made his first public remarks since the proceedings started. Robert Costa has more.
Good evening, John. This was former Vice President Pence's first speech since last week's blockbuster hearing. He called January 6th a tragic day, but he did not address former President Trump's criticism of him from recent days. Trump has said Pence didn't have the courage to overturn the 2020 election. The speech was an attempt by Pence to pivot away from January 6th and instead talk about the economy, but doing so will be difficult as he continues to move toward a possible 2024 presidential campaign. The House committee said today it still wants to hear from Pence and might even issue him a subpoena. Tuesday's hearing, it will be all about the pressure campaign led by Trump and Rudy Giuliani on state officials. One key witness will be the Republican State House Speaker from Arizona, who will testify about how he resisted Giuliani and followed the rule of law. Two Georgia Republican officials will testify the same and talk about how Trump tried to get them to go find more than 11,000 votes and swing the election back to Trump. John.
Robert Costa, thank you. For more, I'm joined by David Gergen. He has served as an advisor to 4 U.S. presidents: Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, Ronald Reagan, and Bill Clinton. David is also the author of Hearts Touched with Fire: How Great Leaders Are Made. The book is published by Simon & Schuster, a division of Paramount Global, which CBS News is also a part of. David, it's very good to be with you. Let me just start with your conclusion about where we are right now in these hearings and what to you has been the most important part of them.
I think the hearings have been very useful to the country. Not everybody is tuning in, of course. I think the numbers are going down. I don't think it's going to sway our politics dramatically, but I do think they've laid a foundation for the Justice Department or other legal eagles to move on, because it won't come out of the blue. It will not be something that sort of we're stunned by an accusation or an indictment of any one of the players around the president, or indeed President Trump himself. And I think the hearings have been good for that. We've seen some new personalities emerge in the Republican ranks, with Adam Kinzinger in particular, along with obviously with Liz Cheney. That's been, I think, very healthy. Mike Pence is actually, his star looks a little brighter, too, because he did turn down the president when he was under enormous pressure, and he never buckled on that. So you have to give Pence some credit. But overall, I would have to say I think the hearings have been very constructive. They're not the thing of everyday conversation. People talk more about the president falling off a bike than they do about what they heard in one of these hearings. But I do think that they are a bridge to make whatever decisions are going to be made about what's the future of these individuals who certainly had deep brushes with the law, but may well be indicted for criminal obstruction or for conspiracy.
David, let me ask you a question. When you are a student of leadership, you watched it up close, your new book is about it, you've taught other people about leadership and being a leader. When you see these hearings, what do you think the message is about leadership, whether it's the president or those who stood up against him? What should people be keeping in mind when they think about, well, what lessons of leadership are we getting out of this drama that we are watching be discussed here in these hearings?
Well, I think it is leadership, and it's good leadership to have the hearings. And I thought Nancy Pelosi made a mistake by not accepting more Republicans early on, so it could be claimed to be a much more bipartisan affair. I think it was a mistake. The mistake is going to play itself out. If anything, if the committee goes after Trump, and it's basically Democrats going after Trump, the Republicans are going to raise hell about it being biased and one-sided. That could have been avoided early on by having a more balanced committee. But generally speaking, I think there are some individuals who have done well in these hearings. And what you often find in times of adversity is that's when real leaders step forward. That's when you really understand who's got it and who doesn't. And in this case, as I say, there are some Republicans whom I think have shown admirable courage, which is good. Let me just say, kind of, if I might, John, also direct a remark to what you said earlier about the economy, because it's so, the leadership question there was front and center. What happened in the late 60s, early 70s, and I was there with Reagan on this, was that Paul Volcker stepped forward as chairman of the Federal Reserve Board, and and the inflation rate was way higher than it is today. The unemployment rate was high; it was all called the misery index. But Volcker stood there and took a pummeling from people, but he did the right thing. It was a tough thing to do. He went up and fought inflation for year after year. It brought us a deeper, deep recession. But once he broke the back of inflation, and once he broke the back of it, we haven't had a problem until now. And beyond that, Jimmy Carter appointed Paul Volcker as a Democrat, and Ronald Reagan came along, and under those of us on the staff, several of us pushed him to please, Mr. President, keep Paul Volcker in there. He's tough. Yep. And that's exactly what Reagan did. He paid a heavy price in the midterms, but it broke the back of inflation. And Reagan then had a very, very successful growth in the months and years.
David, as a final question, you write in your book about the quality of courage. And you quote Churchill, who said, courage may be the most important quality of all to have. And so, again, on this question of courage, Judge Ludig said in his testimony, he said that basically the onus is on the Republican Party. He said only the party that instigated this war over our democracy can bring an end to that war. It will require, first, do you believe that? And if you do, won't that require a kind of courage among some Republican to stand up against the Republican Party? And if so, is there someone who has that courage?
Yes, well, I think Judge Ludig himself has a lot of that courage. He worked with me in the White House way back. He was more conservative than I was, but he's a man of great integrity. He served extraordinarily well on the bench. And I think in the comments you just quoted, he showed a lot of courage. So I do think we need, and we'll look back, I hope, upon half a dozen people who emerge as the Margaret Chase Smith on the Republican Party, as the Howard Baker on the Republican Party, as Barry Goldwater on the Republican Party. Barry Goldwater is one of the people who pushed Nixon to get out and to leave the White House. So there were individuals. If we see some more of them, it'll send a clear message that maybe we're going to be on the road back before these hearings are done.
Oh. All right, David Gergen, thank you. The book is Hearts Touched with Fire, How Great Leaders Are Made, and it's not just about politics. It's about all kinds of leadership. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Jim.